Everyone loved reading fantasy as a kid, right? It's been a constantly popular genre for, well, pretty much ever. But I'm willing to bet, depending on your age, your taste in fantasy has changed. For me, when I was a kid, almost anything with a dragon or castle would do, but when I got a bit older, I'd start going for more complicated works like The Wheel of Time or The Lord of the Rings. But throughout my entire life, there's been this one consistent series that I've been able to appreciate in different ways, and that's of course Dinotopia. When I was a kid, it was awesome, well, because dinosaurs, duh. But then as a teen, this idea of finding a lost world was so captivating, and now as an adult, I can really appreciate the true depth and scale of the details of the world. Over the years, I realized I haven't really heard any news about the series, or even people really discussing it. So what ever happened to Dinotopia? Hi everyone, my name is Otto, and welcome to Exits Examines. We'll be exploring the lives of people, companies, products, and more after their time has seemingly come to an end. If that sounds good to you, there's a subscribe button below. Now, for those of you who don't know, Dinotopia is a series of books about a utopian world where dinosaurs and people coexist in harmony. The idea sounds simple enough on paper, but the level of detail is truly astounding. And it all comes down to the imagination of one man, James Gurney. Reading about Gurney's life is extremely humbling because it seems like the man has done a bit of everything, from archaeology to making postage stamps. Gurney was born in California in 1958, and as the son of an engineer, he was interested in drawing at a very young age. But even at this young age, Gurney's interests were incredibly varied, from ancient civilizations, lost worlds, and of course, dinosaurs. He pursued these interests into college while studying archaeology at Berkeley. Relatably enough, after college, Gurney had to find work ASAP to support himself and his fiancée, and eventually found work painting for an animation studio making the film Fire and Ice, which I had never heard of, but was this He-Man-esque 1983 film. He'd go on to publish his own book called The Artist's Guide to Sketching, which was inspired by this beatnik-type trip he took across America. After that, he started painting archaeology reconstructions for National Geographic, and in case you're an uneducated idiot like me and don't know what that is, basically he went on location with archaeologists and tried to create realistic paintings of what ancient civilizations would look like from the ground up. During the research for these scenes, Gurney was inspired to create a series of Lost Worlds paintings, including Dinosaur Parade, which, as an aside, was apparently used as inspiration for the parade at the end of Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. With the encouragement of friends, he committed 2 years' time to writing and illustrating an entire book based on this concept, and this would later become Dinotopia: A Land Apart from Time. In a really telling quote, he's stated in interviews that he's fascinated with dinosaurs because they are this fine line between fantasy and reality, which I think is just so true. Dinotopia came from his interests of archaeology and lost world civilizations, and as a kid, he said he's always been fascinated about this idea of creating his own worlds, complete down to every detail, including the hinges on the doors. Apparently, he spent a lot of time at museums and talking to experts, trying to understand how this world would realistically function, and things really started to come together when he drew the map of Dinotopia. The first book was published in 1992, and the beating heart of the story is of course the setting of Dinotopia. This is one of those things that went way over my head as a kid, but the title Dinotopia is of course a combination of the words dinosaur and utopia. And this idea permeates the world where, in Gurney's eyes, quote, the dinosaurs have domesticated the humans rather than vice versa. I think one huge reason the world of Dinotopia captured the imagination of so many is because the world just has this endless amount of depth and detail. The books have these paintings that highlight specific objects and include descriptions explaining them, like the beds are circular because they are shaped like dinosaur nests, or how dinosaurs brush their teeth. In a way, the entire concept is just so simple, and boiled down, it's basically what if humans and dinosaurs lived together. But because the world is painted in such absurd detail, out, it becomes this living, breathing world. This is reinforced by Gurney's art, which is just jaw-dropping. When you hear him talk about Dinotopia, you can see that a lot of his passion is about the paintings themselves, and he stated it was important for him to, quote, go against the knee-jerk media marketing of dinosaurs as ruthless monsters. Gurney had this simple but just excellent approach to writing his books. He said when he imagined this world, he wanted to experience exploring it himself, so he wrote from the perspective of new arrivals to the island, writing a journal. We follow Arthur and Will after they wash up on Dinotopia after being shipwrecked. Arthur is a scientist and takes great interest in his surroundings, focusing on the specific details of the setting. We see the world through his pictures with text descriptions explaining the details of the world, and in a cute way, Gurney has tied himself to Dinotopia by saying he simply found this journal washed up on the shore and then published it. A common theme throughout the book is how machines and technology equal bad and nature plus dinosaurs equal good. This is explored more with the sequel, The Land Beneath, where more of the world of Dinotopia is revealed alongside its past. Gurney has stated in interviews with every book he wants to explore new areas and cultures of Dinotopia, and he absolutely achieves this. The third book, First Flight, is more of a prequel and actually has this accompanying board game which I definitely remember playing. Anyway, it's kind of a origin story of Dinotopia, and Gurney has said it came from this idea of how the island had to go through a dystopia to reach its current utopia. The fourth book takes us to the eastern part of the island and follows Arthur again. It was inspired by the discovery of feathered dinosaurs. Gurney has stated as he's written the books, the science of dinosaurs is constantly expanding, and he wanted his works to reflect this. So after the mainline series, what's been going on? First of all, I thought there were only 4 books, but wow, was I wrong. The Dinotopia Digest novels were published starting in 1995 and are short novels aimed at preteens. Although they aren't illustrated, they have covers by James Gurney, and he gives his input on the writing. They typically have straightforward plots, and people tend to like them for what they are, nice little additions to the world. Some of these are simple one-note adventures like River Quest, and some of them have returning characters and overarching plots. It's fascinating to see the Dinotopia world transposed to purely written novels because it goes to show how special the original 4-book series was in its use of these gorgeous paintings and how much work they do to bring Gurney's world to life. Now, there were of course some video game adaptations, with Dinotopia on the PC in 1995 being the first. It's a run-of-the-mill adventure game, and amazingly enough, it was made by the same people who did the incredibly dark I Have No Mouth, But I Must Scream. We play as Nathan, who is shipwrecked on Dinotopia and on a journey to find his lost sister. It has some charming live-action sequences using animatronic dinosaurs, and we stop in familiar landmarks along the way, such as the hatchery, Waterfall City, and the worlds beneath. There were some fun puzzles, and the cutscenes are just so full of personality and really cutting edge for the time. For a few years after its release, there was nothing on the game front until there was a flurry of renewed activity in the early 2000s. The next game was Dinotopia Lands Activity Center, and I don't know what the deal is, but with this game I could find pretty much no information, and the information I did get was from screenshots and eBay listings. I can tell you with somewhat certainty that it did exist, and it was a PC game published by Activision with various puzzle games. As far as gameplay footage, reviews, sales figures, I drew a complete blank. Even the Dinotopia wiki just has a blank page, so I tried my best, guys. If anyone has played this game, I would love to hear about it. Then there was Dinotopia, the Timestone Pirates, which is a very strange platformer featuring combat, which is kind of weird because there's almost no violence in the franchise. Speaking of violence, Dinotopia the Sunstone Odyssey followed in the dinosaur genocide footsteps with more gameplay with a combat focus. It was heavily criticized for not being faithful to the source material and incredibly repetitive gameplay. I don't think it did particularly well, and since then there's been no more video games in the setting, which is too bad because the Dinotopia world would work so well as a game. Flying some skybacks around Waterfall City would be awesome. In 2002, Hallmark and Disney brought Dinotopia to life with a 4-hour miniseries, which might have been one of the first of its kind. Packed into 3 episodes totaling over 4 hours, it had all manner of CGI dinosaurs and settings, and keep in mind that this was still when CGI was a new thing, so doing this on a TV budget was impressive. As far as story, in a departure from the books, it takes place in the modern day and follows two brothers who find themselves in Dinotopia after their plane crashes. It's kind of like a sequel to the books, and it has Will's daughter and other tie-ins. Despite the impressive visuals, with more than 75% of the scenes needing visual effects, the delivery and plot is a little bland. Kind of run-of-the-mill early 2000s family adventure fare, but it's definitely an impressive take for Dinotopia considering it's for the TV. Because of the miniseries' success, a 13-episode TV series arrived later in 2002. The series picks up where the miniseries left off and introduces the Outsiders, a group living beyond Dinotopia laws. It was cut pretty quickly, and it's kind of a shame that the series was canceled because what it tries to do, just a lighthearted adventure in a fantastical world, it does a decent job, even if the CGI hasn't aged that gracefully and the thick New Jersey accents don't take you out of it. Maybe because of the mediocre response to the TV show, there was never a movie that came out. Both Columbia Pictures and Disney at one time made the attempt, but both studios would abandon the idea. There was one movie, the animated Dinotopia Quest for the Ruby Sunstone, in 2005. It's aimed at children, and I mean young children, and as an adult, it's a bit cheesy, but I mean, if you're 6, you'll probably love it. The movie is about the orphan Ken who ends up in Dinotopia, finding friends and saving the islands along the way. For a kids movie, things can be a little dark, but it's interesting seeing an animated take on some of the famous settings. Now, obviously, over the last decade, Hollywood has been reaching deep back into the franchise barrel for new ideas, so it's surprising Dinotopia has never been tapped, giving its generational crossover appeal. And I mean, if Jurassic Park was successful, well, why not Dinotopia? As recently as 2022, LA-based production company Halcyon Studios was mentioned to possibly be working on something involving Dinotopia, but there hasn't been a ton of news on it since the initial announcement, so we'll just have to wait and see. As far as a book sequel, there's been no news about this. If you look at the timeline gap between the books, they seem to be getting longer and longer with each iteration, so it's not beyond the realm of possibility that there might be another one. Gurney has been incredibly active in recent years and runs his own blog and has published a few books about painting. Actually, the man himself runs a very active YouTube channel teaching painting and talking about his process. The impression I personally get from interviews and many of his recent books is that he's more interested in the process and education of painting more than anything else, so I wouldn't be surprised if his future works were more centered around that. But you know, I think if we never got another Dinotopia book, it's okay. The bar was already raised exceptionally high, and it's rare to see a world so fleshed out and so lived in down to such minute details as the one that Gurney created in Dinotopia. So what happened to Dinotopia? Gurney has stated that he always wanted to create a rich, vibrant, believable world that would be a doorway where the reader could become engaged between fact and fantasy, and boy did he succeed. There have been countless spin-offs, games, TV series, you name it, it's been done. Dinotopia blew readers away with its gorgeous world and combination of dinosaurs and ancient human culture. This incredible world can't be forgotten easily, and I wouldn't be surprised if in the future this amazing universe was expanded upon somehow. So until next time, breathe deep and seek peace. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all the help as I try to get this channel off the ground. If you want to do more to support me, please check out my Patreon below. And as always, if you have ideas for what you want me to cover next, just drop a comment below. Thanks so much. I'll see you guys next time.